I was going to say, and I'll be forced by Chris to do this.
You should have. Oh, I have a penny collection. I don't know what it calls a coin collection.
My dad's got a collection of like, one of every coin in circulation.
Well, we're all here being the coins. This guy and his coins. All right. Gentlemen, welcome back to Pillar Talk. Pillar Talks are meant to talk about the patch and the upcoming release, kind of talk about the future, the past, a little bit, whatever we want to talk about, really. So, John, thank you for returning, our vehicle pipeline director. Yep. This is your second rodeo.
Yep, surprise stand-in for Sean Tracy, who disappeared at short notice.
And Aaron, Chief Development Officer, welcome to your first Pillar Talk.
I try and avoid it as much as possible.
I think this episode, though, we're going to focus on a couple things. The first one, development. We're going to talk a little about the development process. We frequently will kind of go through and evaluate our development process from time to time, and then we're doing that right now. So, Aaron, what are we here to chat about?
You know, working on the project, and you know, we've adjusted a few times on the development side in terms of you know, working out what works, what doesn't work. We noticed in the last two deliveries we missed it by a couple of weeks each time because basically some features were coming in late, and so we couldn't get the rest, you know, the proper QA time to go in, and then you want to get it out.
There's no point having 1,000 features in the game if half the time half of them don't work how you would expect them to be. You're not going to have a fun time playing in that game.
So the idea is, rather than trying to get it done and squeeze it all into 3 or 4 weeks, we actually give ourselves plenty of time. So when we're delivering these features, we don't have more time to develop and make sure they're right. We have more time to really polish them. We have more time to really make sure that they, you know, that they're fun, they work.
But does that change our release schedule on the PU at all?
We're still delivering every quarter, it's just that we're trying to get a cadence where half the teams are basically getting more time. You know, we split up a bunch of the teams to smaller groups. They'll be working with 6 months worth of work. We're going to get 3.7 done in that period of time, so we can start the other teams overlapping. So a bunch of the teams are working on 3.8 stuff, while then the 3.7 teams who finish on 3.7 will then be working towards basically 3.9. You take that time, and then the development for it means that each of our sprints is basically 2 weeks. So rather than be able to do 3 sprints of 6 weeks, actually it works out we can do more like 8 sprints altogether, which is 16 weeks.
What's your kind of plan to make sure that we stay on task and we still deliver every 2 quarters on a staggered development for your teams? Like, do you still want to put in place certain things that are like checks and balances and get it to QA? And is this
it's essentially the same process, just over a larger time frame, which just makes each of those individual gates a much more achievable set of goals.
We want to keep a quarterly delivery, but why do we need to force all the teams all the time to be trying to hit this quarterly delivery?
It compromises especially on the dev side, when in your mind you've got the first week of a quarter, you're doing your planning, you know what you're going to do, you execute on it, then you prepare it for the patch, and you go out to Evocati PTU and you're doing your feedback, and then you're expecting a date for it to be gone, and you start again. When it goes past that, the other date doesn't tend to move, so you then have to pinch that time back somewhere. Do you take it out of planning? Taking out of planning is usually a bad thing, because then it makes executing it worse.
The content teams already run to a different cadence. They're not delivering every quarter. They may work for, you know, if you're working on, I mean, you know, on John's side ships, you know.
Yeah, they're when we're happy with them. Like we always used to go towards, here's the quarter releases for the year, split up the ships between it, go in. But then it was a case of, well, this ship needs more time because we're not happy with X, Y, Z on it. And rather than just release a ship at a date, we'll release it when it's ready, like the Defender, the 890.
You know, same with a lot of the environment work. You know, if you're doing a big landing location planet, that's not something you just usually can fit in, you know, in a nice tight, you know 3-month quarterly period. It goes longer. But on the feature side, generally, I mean, yes, we had some features which, you know, went a bit longer. I mean, mining was one of them. The original set of mining went through, and that took a couple of quarters in the background. But since that period, we've really been trying to just fit everything into a sort of quarterly release. And the reason you do that is because we want to show as much, you know, as a team, we're all trying to show as much new stuff and new features and work as we can to the community, and we're trying to just show all it in.
And John, you know, with this kind of cadence from a team's perspective, I guess, how does this impact like the vehicle teams that you're working with?
Aside from obviously giving us more time, because by doing it as a 6-month or longer block, you strip out those multiple planning and not testing, but sort of preparing for releases. If you're doing the feature in a quarter, you lose like time for planning for that quarter and for testing that quarter. you string them together, you can strip that middle bit out and spend that on development instead. And it helps move away from developing features as like a checklist of features, like we want to do X and Y in the game. If you do it in this very specific order, and knowing these caveats, you can do it.
Sure.
But that doesn't make it a fun and exciting experience to do. And we've got a huge amount of features in the game that if we tweak and sort of polish those, they all just work together so much more nicely, and then the whole overall experience becomes a lot better.
We put new features in now, we don't have the time, and things break, and it's frustrating. We want to get away from that. We want to make that, now when we deliver, my huge drive is to make sure that, from now on, every time we deliver it is better than the last quarter you had, and we felt like the last quarter or two, because we pushed some stuff in, it wasn't quite as as good as we'd like.
Yeah, that's right. And some of this comes from, I think, to throw anyone in here, some of this comes from the community, some of it comes even from the developers, right? Internally, like a lot of times we do a lot of postmortems, we do a lot of feedback gathering, and then we ourselves know these things. But like, how can we make the experience good for the developers, for the community, but then also get the game to where we feel like it?
But yeah, like I talked about earlier, because you're moving away from just ticking off a feature and saying, technically it's done, that feature works, but you have to work around it by doing this, and that. It allows people to sort of have more pride and just a great feeling about doing this thing. Like, this is a feature that I've worked on for 6 months and it works great. So now I'm happy for people to play it, rather than I was told I had to do this feature and this is what was provided in the time, and I know it's not great.
Yeah, it's like, this is all I can do in the time. We wanted it out, and a lot of that is about getting stuff in. There'll be a lot of different cool stuff, getting the economy working properly, getting a bunch of missions working properly, getting the AI working properly, getting lots of locations on the planets with all the different feature sets we have for creating. We've got this wonderful, the planetary tech, which allows us to basically just create, everything on the fly and the location on the fly, get all that stuff working. If we get that stuff working, we get the working stuff, and then we have an amazing gameplay experience, and then we can provide features and content and gameplay for years to come, to really just keep make this incredible universe we're doing.
Kind of on the cadence of the Staggered of 6 months, why 6 months, why not a year? What was kind of the thinking behind that?
If a feature needed more than 6 months, we'd have it. It was just more about doubling the cadence. We felt like typically 6 months is quite a good number, but yes, sometimes things take longer. But there will be some features which may need 9 months. They need 9 months, people work on 9 months. It's just that what we aren't prepared to do is just try and throw it all in at the end and then just have this huge mess of stuff and things. We want to actually get to a level where it goes in because it's working, it's been tested. We think it's fun, it's great. Yes, there's going to be one or two issues and a few polished things, but we now know we have the time to really make it great.
And then what does this kind of impact have on, you kind of were talking about features, how many features, quality of features, are we going to reduce features? What's our plan with?
We have a whole list of the features that we apps 100% are going to deliver, but what we want to do is deliver them in a way that makes sense, and that means that we're going to go and going to get all the cool stuff we have working properly, and then when everything is working the way it should, at that point, that'll be, for a game, that'll be more gameplay than pretty much anything out there already.
And then we were going to talk about Squadron 42. Is there any impact to Squadron 42 with this
John works and everything as well, but it really should help. At the end of the day, this whole situation means that there's less downtime for people who are doing the Squadron work and have to support stuff in the PU. We have the longer development cycles because a bunch of the work, all the Squadron features are in the PU. It's a shared code base. So this whole thing should really help everybody in what they're doing.
Yeah, the people that are working on missions for Squadron are having to sort of work with the same stuff that goes out every quarter. Obviously, they get it as it comes in, but if people are struggling to do a certain feature in the PU, then spending longer to fix it means that the Squadron team gets that fix in a better state sooner, so it helps them.
So in terms of a long-term roadmap, yes, I think you will see some changes to that. Then we're going to basically just break down exactly where we're going with all the features and so forth to get them to where they need to be. And we'll be sitting here in a year's time and we'll talk about some other improvements we want to do and so forth. But that's developments. You can't stand still. You have to sit there and you learn from your experiences and you work out what's worked.
If you just blindly do the same thing over and over again, then nothing's going to improve.
Chris said in in CitizenCon last year, is, you know, our plan is to, you know, when we have persistence, when we have some of these core features in, like we've got like the orgs working properly, which is part of this drive as well for the things we're doing, when we have the server meshing going, at that point, we feel like we have a game, and that's what we want to get to. So we're working, while all this is going in, we're cleaning everything up, we're polishing up, we're making all these features work great, we're adding all the sub-features in there and so forth. And at that point, we have the game that people can just play and really love and play. And then what, you know, what's great after that? Every quarter, we give them more, we give them more, we give them more. We're then going to basically just keep on building on this for, you know, for years to come.
That about says it all. Well, gentlemen, that was it. Pretty painless Pillar Talk. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
And
Cool.
obviously, thanks subscribers and backers for letting us do all this stuff, right?
Always, yeah.
Always.
All right. Well, let's get back to work. Thanks, gents.
Cheers.